So I did one semester at the university, did the next 3 semesters at the junior college, and from there transferred on to a 4-year college.
As a student athlete, you're being recruited to compete in your first year. Smaller class sizes, so it's easier, to adjust for international students.
By the end of my 4-year degree, I turned from a very below average high school student to graduating university with honours. So.
Welcome to the NSR Australia podcast. My name is Jacob Richards, former NSR student athlete. Okay, hello listeners. Thank you for tuning into the second episode of the NSR Australia podcast. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to all those who gave feedback on our first podcast. It's something very new for us. We definitely want to make each podcast better than the last. So please feel free to send in any suggestions. If there's a particular topic that you would like to have covered, please let me know. Now, I know I mentioned last week that we would be talking about school applications and the visa application process, but due to the overwhelming amount of feedback we've had, we've sort of switched the topics around a little bit. So today, what we're going to be talking about is junior college. Now, a lot of NSR athletes head to junior college in their freshman year, similar to myself. And, there's always lots of unanswered questions when it comes to the American junior college and community college system. So in this episode, we'll be answering more of the frequently asked questions that we have from parents and athletes on the program when it comes to junior college. We'll also go over the pros and cons of taking this pathway. Now, in to talk about this today, we have one of our prospect managers, Harrison Burgess, as well as our head prospect manager, Matt Wade. Matt, Harrison, welcome, guys.
Jacob, what's happening, man?
How you doing, bud?
Awesome. Now, Matt, tell everyone a little bit about yourself. Obviously, you're familiar with the junior college system. Give everyone a little bit of an insight into your story for those who aren't really familiar with it.
Well, I grew up in Texas originally, and when it came time, graduated from high school, went to go on to college as you sort of naturally do. Started out in a university, and I didn't really care for the social side of it too much. Academically, it was fine, so I actually transferred from a university to a junior college. Did the next, so I did one semester at the university, did the next 3 semesters at the junior college, and from there transferred on to a 4-year college to then complete my bachelor's degree. From there, I once I had a bachelor's degree, I moved into a career in coaching. At 24 years old, I became the head coach of the Iowa Central Community College men's soccer program. And that's essentially where I came across you guys, actually. Both Jacob and Harrison were 2 of the first athletes that I recruited from overseas to come and play for my college program. And yeah, once they got there, after a year being there, I sort of picked up and moved to Australia, and now I'm doing what I'm doing here with NSR. So it's been I've experienced junior college for myself, from both a player's perspective as well as a coaching perspective, and I think they're phenomenal places, especially for international students to start their journey.
Awesome. And Harrison, give everyone a little bit of an insight into yourself and your story.
Yeah, so as Matt touched on, Jacob and I were one of the first athletes he recruited from Australia. So I'm originally from Perth myself, and spent 2 years at Iowa Central Community College playing soccer, and then from there I was able to transfer on to another university called Mount Mercy University, where I ran track and played soccer as well. Completed my degree in business and finance, and for me it was awesome. Like, I got to experience 2 different sort of styles of college, different experiences, and different campuses as well. So for me it was awesome.
Awesome. So we'll get straight into it. Now, a lot of questions arise when we talk about junior college. Obviously, it's an unfamiliar sort of pathway to most Australian families. So we'll go to you first, Matt, and start off with a basic question. What are junior and community colleges?
Well, basically, a junior college or community college is it's a 2-year college that provides the first 2 years of a 4-year bachelor's degree. So they provide the first 2 years of your undergraduate coursework. Once you complete those 2 years, you then transfer on to do your 3rd and 4th year at either a 4-year college or a university. And then once you've completed that 4 years, you've got an undergraduate bachelor's degree, Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Science. And essentially, if you do 2 years at a junior college, 2 years at a bigger college, it's the exact same 4 years as if you were to spend all 4 years in one school, either a 4-year college or a university. A lot of people, especially here in Australia and New Zealand, they'll compare a community college to a TAFE or a vocational school. And look, that's just human nature, to compare things to what you have in your own country or what you're used to. So I don't blame anybody for doing that, but when you're comparing the American education system and the Australian education system, you're really comparing an apple with an orange. They're two different things. Look, they all really end at the same result with an undergraduate education, but the way that the systems are designed are just a little bit different. Now, a TAFE or a community college or a junior college, it can be like a TAFE. There is vocational coursework that's being offered, but that's only for domestic American students. International students aren't actually allowed to study vocational coursework at 2-year programs. They can only study university transfer coursework. So basically, after the first and second year of that 4-year course is completed, they then move on to do year 3 and 4. Really how the system works, if it was any different academically in your first and second year at a junior college or a community college than it was at a university, then you wouldn't be allowed to transfer that coursework and continue as a 3rd-year student. It's like I said, you can do all of your studies in one place, or you can bounce around in the United States. And like my experience, I went to 3 different schools, 3 different kinds of schools, from a university to a 2-year college, back to a 4-year college. Finished my studies in the exact same amount of time as I would have if I would have started and finished in one place. So a lot of flexibility, and it's a very user-friendly system in the United States.
Awesome. So basically, a junior college or a community college, you do your first 2 years of your 4-year education, essentially. Now, Harrison, you went to a junior college for your first 2 years, as did I. Give everyone a bit of a rundown of your first semester, how you settled in, the class sizes, living on campus, and anything else, that the listeners might like to hear.
Well, I think a little bit about my experience. You should probably know that I was a pretty, there's no pretty way to put it, a pretty horrible high school student. Like I barely graduated high school. So for me, the concept of going to university or college was something a little bit scary for me. Like I wasn't too sure how I was going to go with the studies, but the sort of the class sizes and the support systems put in place at Iowa Central and most community colleges all community colleges across the country, it made it easy for me to transition, and I turned into, by the end of my 4-year degree, I turned from a very below average high school student to graduating university with honours. So and that all started with the support that I had to begin with. So for me, like, it was the small class sizes. Like none of my lectures or any tute stuff like that were more than 30 to 35 students, and some were even sort of 10 to 15. And then in that any class I had trouble with, like I had free tutors available every night in the library. Like as a soccer team, we would study together. Like we had what's called study tables. So that was twice a week. We'd go either to the library or to a classroom on campus, and we'd study together as a team. And those who were doing better in certain classes would help out those who were struggling, or those who were just generally a bit smarter than some of us were able to help us out in certain subjects, which definitely helped out along the way. And that being said as well, with the small class sizes and the sort of smaller campuses, you get to know your professors and your teachers, because on a first name basis, like I still have a couple of my professors from college on Facebook that I still speak to quite often, just because they're able to get to know you and sort of understand what your needs are, and if you need help with anything along the way, they sort of see where you're at and maybe see where you're struggling, and they can put more sort of personal time into what's going on as well.
Awesome. So Harrison has mentioned how easy it was for him to settle in because of the class sizes, and also he was able to get one-on-one time with his teachers. Matt, what other support systems are in place for international students at junior college?
Well, basically, junior colleges, community colleges they're going to have the same support networks as universities for international students. Like you've got an office, an international student affairs office on campus that's dedicated to the well-being of, every international student. You've got a designated school official, counselors, people there to help you that have lived it and done it and live the life of an international student before actually working for the college. So in terms of a support network that you have there, it's actually brilliant. Probably the biggest support network, especially if you're a student athlete, is your teammates. You've got guys from or girls from every part of the globe that are all there, doing the same thing, studying, training. It's a very great routine, I guess, that you can get into, and when your peer group is all doing the same thing and there's the same expectations for study and training and the social life, everything about it is fantastic. And look, even for those domestic US students, the culture is you leave home after you graduate high school. Everyone, whether they're from there or you're from overseas, everyone is there living in that campus community for the first time, away from their home. So it's an awesome sort of social dynamic from people from all walks of life that are there to really accomplish the same things and really enjoy and make the most of their experience.
Great. So we have a basic understanding now of junior and community colleges and the difference between sort of four-year colleges and universities. Let's have a look at the pros and cons of the two-year pathway. Okay, Matt, I'll start with you. Give everyone a few positive aspects of taking the junior college pathway.
Well, firstly, looking at it from an athlete standpoint and from a coaching standpoint, I would recruit student athletes who were competition ready, which means for you as a student athlete, like you're being recruited to a junior college to participate. And that early participation is something that makes your overall experience just that much better. Bigger schools will oftentimes recruit younger athletes with an idea of development, which means that you're competing against kids that are 4 and 5 years older than you, that have been there for 3, 4, sometimes 5 years, fighting for the same roster spots. So, when you can go to a smaller school or go to a junior college right away, you know that you're being recruited to play, that's what everybody wants, especially if you're coming from overseas. You're not going all the way over there to just sit on the bench and grow. Like, you can grow through competition. Secondly, I think the smaller class sizes, the transition that you're making as an international student over to the United States is a big transition. It's a different education system. It's, the mix of full-time training with full-time studies is, it's a lot to take on in a short period of time. So to have smaller class sizes with more direct student-teacher interaction, more support, raise your hand and ask a question, as opposed to sitting in a lecture hall of 1,500 students where you just have to sort of, sink or swim. I think that's a really big beneficial part of it. It certainly helped me even as a student. Another huge one is affordability. You've got these 2-year schools. Junior colleges, community colleges are offering the exact same coursework as 4-year colleges and universities in the first 2 years of that four-year study, but they're offering it for a fraction of the price. It's absolutely fantastic. Like I went to a school, that was $30,000 a year where I finished my studies. After scholarship, I was still left paying about $12 a year for tuition fees, accommodation, food. Whereas the school that I coach for, Iowa Central, where you boys went, our full price for tuition fees, accommodation, food, everything started at $12,000. And I was able to scholarship down from there. So, I was able to keep our athletes, sometimes under $10,000 a year for everything. So affordability is massive. I think the other great part about junior college is the experience of being able to see different parts of the United States. Like, you as an international student, this journey that you're about to go on or looking at diving into, it's an experience. So to stay in one place for the whole time, yeah, I'm sure you'll have a good time with that. But, I think being able to experience one place for 2 years and use that as a stepping stone to potentially bigger and better things for your final 2 years, see 2 different areas of the country, make 2 different, sets of friends and have all these different connections all over the place, it just adds to your experience. So, look, I think those are some of the main points, definitely, as to why I think, and I guess we as a program think that the 2-year pathway is beneficial. But look, there's plenty more. So
Awesome. So just a bit of a recap on the pros. As a student athlete, you're being recruited to compete in your first year. Smaller class sizes, so it's easier, to adjust for international students. The full cost for tuition and fees are significantly lower than 4-year institutions, even without scholarship. And also you have the opportunity to see different parts of the country. Okay, Harrison, we've looked at some of the pros. Give everyone, I guess, some cons of the junior college pathway.
Yeah, well, I think, Matt definitely touched on some positives, and overall, my experience and most athletes and kids' experience through the community college and junior college pathways is a positive one overall, but definitely not going to lie to you that there are some cons and some sort of negative side of things as well. The first one being, a lot, not all, but a lot of junior colleges are located in sort of more rural or sort of less metropolitan areas where there's the smaller sort of size cities. So you sort of maybe 2 or 3, an hour or 2 out of a major city or a main part of the state. So it can be sometimes a little bit. You have to travel to, if you want to go to like a hockey game or a soccer game or something like that. You may have to travel a little bit. Whereas sort of a lot of bigger universities tend to be located, closer to, if not in, big cities. The second one is sort of personal preference. It is a smaller student population. So if you're more drawn to sort of your big college campuses where there's tens of thousands of students, community colleges tend to be on the smaller side, usually no more than 2,000 to 3,000 students at maximum. Some are even sort of under 1,000. So it'll depend on sort of what you want out of the experience and what you're expecting. So and then of course, being a 2-year program, there's the problem. Not a problem, but there's the issue that you will have to transfer after your second year if you want to complete your bachelor's degree. Which for me, I didn't have too much trouble. Like, I was pretty proactive about my recruitment to move on when I went to Mount Mercy. But unless you're proactive and you're actively going out and speaking to coaches or at least using us as a service to help promote you elsewhere, it can be sometimes difficult to make contact with those coaches and then transition from your 2-year program to a 4-year program to complete your degree. And then being a smaller school and the costs overall are a bit lower, depending on what your budget is. They tend to have a lower scholarship budget to put towards athletes. So as Matt touched on before, the overall cost is quite low, so it may be $12,000, but the coach might not be able to offer any scholarship or only be able to offer a small amount, maybe like $500 or $1,000 or something like that. So
Awesome. So just a quick recap on the cons. Junior colleges tend to be in sort of more rural areas of the country outside of the larger cities. The student population is a lot smaller than what you would see at a 4-year college or university. After 2 years, you have to transfer out of your junior college and finish elsewhere if that's what you're looking at doing. And some people, I guess, like to start and finish at the same place. And finally, coaches are dealing with smaller budgets, so there's less scholarship dollars to give. Awesome, guys. Thanks for jumping on this week's podcast. We'll definitely have you guys back on in the next few weeks covering a variety of different topics.
No, I really appreciate it, Jacob. And look, I really actually enjoy this topic. It's I think one that a lot of people have questions about or a lot of uncertainty about. So hopefully, the information that we provided is beneficial and helpful to a lot of you out there.
Yeah, definitely. I think as Matt touched on, it's a topic that's close to most of our hearts, and having gone through the system ourselves, I think it's important that people are sort of educated and have the knowledge there about the junior college system and the pathway that it can create for you as well.
Okay, thank you, Matt and Harrison. Now, hopefully everyone listening has learned something new today on this podcast. It's definitely, unfamiliar territory with Australian families. Junior college is something very new and different, and it's something that isn't really on offer here in Australia. So the more information you guys have, definitely the better. If you have any sort of questions or you'd like to share your thoughts or supply any feedback, please do so in the comments section on Facebook or YouTube, or you can shoot me through an email at jrichards@nsr-inc.com. Now, due to the overwhelming amount of emails and views that we've had on the first podcast, instead of doing podcasts once every sort of 2 weeks, we're going to be doing them every week. We'll have a new topic every single week, so that's very exciting. Next week, we're going to go over athlete profiles and all the information that coaches love to see. Now, you also may recall in last week's episode, I mentioned that we will be running webinars every 2 months for the athletes and families on the program. We've sort of changed that up a little bit as well. So very soon we'll be launching NSR TV, which is really, really exciting. Basically, it'll be a news channel. We'll be interviewing athletes and parents on the program. We'll be providing tips for everyone on the program, and we'll cover a wide range of topics similar to the podcast. Now, if you listened all the way through to the end and would like some more pros and cons of the junior college system, please feel free to email me again at jrichards@nsr-inc.com. Make sure you guys tune in next week. We'll be covering, as I mentioned, athlete profiles and information that college coaches like to see. Thanks, guys. Bye.